from the All Indiana Podcast Network.
It's time for real conversation about the real issues that affect our communities.
Poverty, education, equality, and more.
This is Real Talk.
Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison.
Welcome. This is Real Talk on the All Indiana Podcast Network. I'm Reverend Charles Harrison, and on this episode, I will be interviewing Reverend James W. Jackson, pastor of Fervent Prayer Church, community leader, and one of the great voices in our city when it comes to these critical issues that affect young Black people in this city. Stay tuned. Welcome to Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison, and I am so honored today to have a good friend of mine, Reverend James W. Jackson, pastor of Fervent Prayer Church, community leader on the far east side of Indianapolis. He is also the founder of Clean for Green, of youth summer jobs program that he started when we met under the Ballard administration, I don't know, 2010, 2011, somewhere in there. And, just has done a lot of remarkable work, on the far east side, and providing leadership. And one of the voices that often I love to talk with as we deal with a lot of the critical issues in our community. So welcome, Pastor Jackson.
Thank you, Reverend Harrison, and I like what you've done with the place.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Nice place here.
Well, thank you. Well, it's so good to have you. And me and you have had a lot of, private conversations and sometimes public conversations about many of the issues that affect particularly the Black community. And sometimes if you don't have a progressive voice or a more liberal voice, then you sometimes can be ostracized when it comes to issues of crime and violence in the community, dealing with the Black family. We can go on and on about these issues. So talk a little bit about some of the work that you're doing on the far east side, and then we can get into some of these tough conversations and topics in our community.
Again, thank you, Reverend Harrison, for the invitation to come and to share on today. And I always enjoy having conversations about what's going on in our community and how we can make it better. And the work that we've been blessed to do in collaboration with the youth work that we've done since 2012 and so many other things that we've been blessed to work together on. I give God praise for that, and thank you for supporting the Clean for Green program, not just verbally, but the 10-Point Coalition making a few donations a few years ago that really, really helped us to employ quite a number of kids, and it's made a difference. So that's, of course, an outreach of the church I pastor, Fervent Prayer Church, and we're 27 years old this month.
Oh, okay. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Started out on the west side over in what used to be School 75 at 14th and Mount.
Okay.
And that facility was and may still be owned by Friendship Missionary Baptist Church. And we rented out a couple of classrooms there. And from there, we were able to buy property on the far east side of town. And we've been blessed to build up the ministry out there. And I got involved in community work back in 2000, I want to say probably 2008 or 9 through the Concerned Clergy. And I would go to Saturday Concerned Clergy meetings. And it was out of there that I met Olgin Williams.
Okay.
He was vice president. And when Greg Ballard won mayor, he asked Olgin to be his deputy mayor of neighborhoods. And it was then Deputy Mayor Olgin Williams who asked me if I would serve on the police merit board for Indianapolis. And I said, yeah, I was interested in public safety and making a difference. I liked him. I still do. And I did 4 years on the merit board for the police department, which is the governing body for the police department. And I learned a lot for those 4 years that I served. And it was during that time that we started the Clean for Green Youth Jobs and Mentoring Program. And we have been able to serve literally thousands of young people since then. And many of them have gone on to do some great work and stayed out of trouble. And we're very grateful for that. Of course, we're a year-round program. It was just a summer program back then. But as you know, Reverend Harrison, young people are not just unemployed in the summer.
That's right. That's true.
They're unemployed year-round. So a lot of these programs only run for the summer. But I saw that, and so we expanded our program to serve our young people year-round. So we have young people in technology serving at our church, also in janitorial services.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of a model that I've been working on for a few years.
Okay.
All of us have, many of us, I should say, have churches, pastors who might be listening. And so we have young people who work with adults in the janitorial services to keep our buildings clean and maintained. And all of our streaming is done by youth with an adult.
Okay.
And we pay them to do the janitorial services, and we pay them to run our streaming equipment on Sundays and Wednesday nights.
Okay.
So when you go in the control room, it's not somebody who's 30 or 40. It's somebody who's 12, 13, 15, 16.
Wow.
And we have I think a top quality streaming service for when we do all of our programs and when we have things at our church. And it's the young people who are doing that through the Clean for Green program.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because I know that when former IMPD Chief Rick Height was police chief, he really talked about the impact of your program, and when you were employing particularly at-risk youth, and giving them, a little spending money, particularly on the weekend and during the week, its impact on the ground. That I think there was a correlation between youth working in these hotspot areas of the city and a reduction in youth crime and violence. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. It was in 2015. You introduced me to a group of pastors on the west side of Indianapolis.
I sure did.
That's how I met Wayne Moore, Covington. Of course, when we started renting the space at the school building, I never met Pastor Covington in person.
Okay.
But through you, I met him, Armstrong, all those guys.
Yeah.
We probably had almost 30 pastors.
Yeah.
And we were working young people in 26 zip codes. A lot of that was west side, east side. And former Chief Height said it was during 2015 that we had almost no youth violence.
Wow.
And we had I think because of what we were doing and the collaborative effort that was taking place, one, it gave young people something to do. And two, God was with us.
Okay.
I think God blesses unity.
Okay.
So I see a two-pronged result in that. The God factor gets involved when you have unity. And of course, with 500 or so young people, you're impacting a lot of people across the city.
So employing that many youth, during a summer program, what was you remember the cost of that? Because I think a lot of us who have done this work for years believe that if we make investment in our young people, then certainly we see the positive results of that if we're willing to make those kind of investments. And to employ 500 youth from across the city, I think is a remarkable feat that was done, by the church community under your leadership.
Yeah, well, we were blessed to raise almost $80,000.
Wow.
All of us were working together there. And the ballot administration through the Indianapolis Public Safety Foundation, which I think was created by the ballot administration to help groups like ours and yours back then. because I remember the bicycle thing, the fundraiser. I think that was the start of the Public Safety Foundation.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Mayor Ballard wanted to do something so that grassroots organizations could be funded, not just through the crime prevention grant monies, but also the police department could do something. And so we were a part of that. But we had received some money from the city of Indianapolis, and the monies that were raised in across the city, all of that, and so it was nearly $100,000 to do that over 8 weeks' time, because you had the young people that we were paying, and then we were also paying mentors, or AKA supervisors, to go out with the young people. Of course, the pastors did it without cost,
right?
Those who actually would go out with us, but we had to have adults for that many young people.
I think the question that a lot of people, are really asking is, with what you see, this rising level of violence in urban cities across the country, and certainly over the last 7 years, Indianapolis has seen the highest level of shootings, stabbings, and homicides and murders in the history of the city. Can urban violence be reduced? Is it possible? Because it's been a problem really for about 5 decades in this country, and disproportionately certainly impacted communities of color. Can it really be reduced? Are there strategies you believe that can help reduce the level of violence that we're seeing? And I know as a pastor, and you are as a pastor, often it hits our church family, and either it's a family within the church or a family member that is a member of our church has experienced that level of violence where, we're having to bury people. So in the work that you've been doing, I know there's a lot of frustration that sometimes politics gets in the midst of public safety in Indianapolis. What's your perspective? Can it really be reduced, urban violence?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It can be. In anthropology, they're what you call ethnographers.
Okay.
And what they do is they study the ethos, or they study the folks who live in a community, how they move about, what they do, and so on and so forth. And so I have looked at our situation like that all the way back to 2007.
Okay.
And in my observation and in my research of our problem that has gotten worse, I went back to the 90s. And when you ask the question, can it be reduced? Well, yes, it was. Indianapolis is not a city. And I know you hear it a lot where people say, well, this is happening all over America.
Right.
Oh, this is happening all over America. And that's true.
Right.
But the differentiating factor, I think, between what's happening in other places across America and Indianapolis, perhaps Minneapolis at one time, because they were very successful at it, we pretty much did exactly what they were doing, is the programs that you, along with a couple of other leaders in the 90s, collaborative efforts that took place between grassroots organizations, police departments, local municipalities, all of that working together, the business community, and it was reduced. And then we saw that effort again somewhere around 2011, 12, 13.
Yeah, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12. Yes, so 4 years. Yes.
Where the goal was keeping homicides under 100.
Yes.
Driving them to zero.
Yes.
Anything over 1 is a problem.
Yes.
But in reality, in a city like ours, could you get it and keep it below 100? And so there was a reinvigoration of those efforts back in the 90s. And some of the common denominators were Reverend Harrison, 10-Point Coalition, Malachi Walker and his Young People's Program, the Youth Jobs programs, the police department and their investigative teams working with community policing.
Right.
And all of that was working. And you had homicides that were going down. We saw, so the answer is yes.
Okay.
But what hinders that is when you have success and you take your foot off the pedal.
Right.
And I think the mistake that has been made is we don't have the perpetuation of these things that have been successful to keep doing them. So in Indianapolis, we saw it with the crime prevention monies that were being disseminated to grassroots organizations who had evidence that their programs were working, and the federal government calls it evidence-based programs.
Right.
In cooperation with what the local government was doing and the police department. And then the city council decided that they would change that.
Right, right.
And I saw it where almost weeks after the decision was made to move the crime prevention money and how it was going to be distributed away from the mayor's office. And I think it was moved to the Parks Department or something.
Yeah, Parks Foundation at the time. Yes, yes.
And now it's housed over at CICF.
Right.
And they're doing the best they can with it. But when that happened, then we started seeing the numbers increase and we started seeing success go down.
Right.
And it has gone down, down, down,
Right.
down, down ever since then. And folks who are listening can fact check that.
Right.
If you go back to the date and time where that was changed to where we are now, it has just gotten worse. I think there was some correlation between where the money was going, who was being distributed to, who was working, who was doing the work, and the community policing part and all of that. We lost it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I remember Reverend Ellis in 2009 made this bold prediction that we were going to be under 100 homicides. And I remember Deputy Mayor Olgin Williams hit me, he shouldn't have said that, but he had set this standard, that for us that year, the whole city, and you're absolutely right. When the crime prevention dollars were under the mayor's office, what was unique about that, Pastor Jackson, was it was other community leaders that were determining and neighborhood leaders how the money was going to be used. So they based it on their own understanding of what groups were out in the community doing what, and they chose the groups,
Yeah, and 10 Point Coalition was one of those groups.
Yes.
When I'm out in the community, people say, well, do you support 10 Point? I say, yeah, I support 10 Point. I support and advocate for Reverend Harrison privately and publicly for what they do, because it's not who's right. It's not a matter of who's right. It's a matter of what's right.
Right.
And for me, what's right is more important than trying to satisfy people who have personal animus toward anybody.
Right.
So your program either works or it does not work.
Right.
Since this is Real Talk podcasting,
right.
I heard an official. They were not an elected official. They were an appointed official. Say one of the first things that they did when they got into the city county building was to stop the funding for 10 Point.
Wow.
I was at a meeting for young youth jobs downtown, and there was some folks talking. They didn't know who I was. Right. Not that I'm anybody.
Right.
My ears are better. Were better then than they are now. I still have good hearing, but I heard someone articulate that, and it was heartbreaking to hear someone say, who was now in control, that one of the first things that they did and wanted to do was to shut down funding for 10 Point.
Wow.
So when you see what's happening now, juxtapose the success we had back then, regardless of how someone may feel about a Reverend Harrison and his program, the question shouldn't be how I personally feel about you.
Right.
Can you get the job done?
Right.
And now I go back to the event that took place at my church, where we had two mayors, the mayor of Lawrence, the mayor of Indianapolis, who's Joe Hogsett now, and we had Chief Hoffman, who retired, and we had, I think, Chief Roach back then.
Yes, Chief Roach, yes.
So two mayors, two police chiefs come together, and they said, the work that 10 Point does, all of them, works.
Right.
And they commended you, and the news media was there.
Right.
And they said, it works. This is great.
Right.
So why wouldn't we fund something that two Marion County mayors and two Marion County police chiefs say it works. Why wouldn't we fund that? Or why wouldn't we make the leader of that success a consultant
Right.
to the city of Indianapolis to say, well, we may not want to use your program,
Right.
but we want you to consult,
Right.
and we're going to pay you, like the sheriff's department. I think they had consultants at one time. I don't know if they still do.
Right.
But because this is so important, and we've got people dying, and we've got families that are being decimated by this problem. We got a community being decimated by this problem. So we're going to put you in as a consultant. Of course, personally, I think we're going to use, hey, let's revitalize and re-energize your program if it's saving lives.
Yeah.
But are we that depraved where we would say, well, we're not going to use you, we're not going to fund you, despite the number of people who are dying?
Well, you know that Reverend Jackson has really been the case in the city, and sadly, as me and you are talking, I think two things really trouble me is, one, how it became political, and number two, the issue of money seems to divide leaders and whether they be clergy or community leaders, and the publicity that one may get through the news media tends to create animosities.
It didn't get you out of the way.
Yeah, it did. But certainly the goal was to get me out of the way.
Yeah, one of the things they do, they shoot you in the budget.
Yeah,
They want to get rid of you.
Yeah.
And it's terribly unfortunate,
Right.
that a program that's worked in the 90s, and I say worked so well that when Mayor Hogsett ran in 2015, he put it on his platform that he was going to use street outreach workers. Now you can Google that.
Yeah.
Of course,
most people don't know that.
Yeah. Well, I do my research.
I know.
So I've got it on my phone right now, and I can read it to you.
Okay.
But one of his things there for public safety was to hire street outreach workers to interrupt and de-escalate potential problems like what we see today. Well, as I recollect, that's exactly what 10 Point does.
Yeah. Yes.
I think.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
what they do.
In 2015, the mayor said it works.
Right.
And so much so, I'm going to include it in my campaign.
Right.
But why not hire 10 Point? Why not keep the money flowing? If it's political, if it's not political, then you keep what's working and you let it work, because the needs of the people are greater than my own biases or issues that I have to deal with. So look how many lives we've lost since 2015 because someone allowed their personal feelings to get in the way of funding a program that was saving lives.
Well, but you can probably look at the same aspect of the Summer Youth Jobs Program. The Summer Youth Jobs Program was created that seemed very similar to the one that you had launched in 2012.
Project Indy?
Yes. Very, very similar to what you launched. Why not expand that instead of 500 kids, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 kids, who are at risk?
Yeah, and real talk, I mean, it's, and I signed off on Project Indy.
Okay.
There was a big thing downtown at Employ Indy, and myself and Dr. Moore, we were there because we were leading the program.
Right.
And we signed, I got pictures of that. We signed the placard thing for the mayor and all. And I'll never forget, the mayor came to my church and he laughed about potholes that he was going to fix, and he did.
Right.
They ran a blitz on potholes and got those fixed. And he also laughed about the fact, and the people at my church were just blown away. He said, and I stole Pastor Jackson's program. So he acknowledged it. But hey, a lot of young people have been helped through Project Indy. Right. But to your point, and this is something Mayor Ballard, I had a conversation with him a few years ago, and he had encouraged Mayor Hogsett to he used the term lop on to our program. Right. Okay. And I'll never forget it. And it bothered me. I asked the mayor's office to help us to pay young people. I think we spent $30,000 that year, about $29,000. And I sent a thing out to the mayor's office to help us. And they sent me a check for $500.
Wow.
And I have that on my wall.
Wow.
It has been a source of inspiration.
You know, for my colleagues who always, tout our party, the Democratic Party, how supportive we are. I think a Republican mayor gave you like $25,000.
Yeah, $25,000 to support the program.
Yes.
and thank you for making the call, because they were going to do it, and somebody was in charge of that, and they were a little slow.
Right.
And we had payroll.
Right.
I mean, we had hired all these kids.
Right.
And you made the phone call, and I think about a week later, we got funded.
Right.
And we were able to pay all those young people.
Right.
I can imagine what would have happened if we would have had to go out there that Friday and tell those young people we didn't have any money.
Yeah. 10 Point would probably have to come try to rescue you back.
Yeah, that was really something. But when you look at that, for a Democratic administration back then,
right,
to give us $500 to me was a slap in the face.
Right.
And it's not that the city didn't have the money.
Right.
It wasn't going to. They didn't just go out and say we're not going to do anything, because there were reasons for that. So they just sent us $500, which was despicable and disgraceful. But I built the program in such a way, because you have to always think about sustainability. What if you don't get a grant? What if you don't get philanthropy? I always wanted the program to be sustainable. So we built it in such a way that we can still employ young people even if nobody helps us. Right.
One of the questions that I'm often asked, by people in the community, and they pretty much can see and sense the divisions among us clergy. And certainly it is much different than 20 years ago. I thought we had a better relationship, certainly with the black elected officials. There seems to be this division and schism within the clergy community, but also among black elected officials that, I think sometimes, Pastor Jackson, has hindered us from really making progress in a lot of different areas. It's not just crime and violence. You look at education, look at the black family, and the struggles we're having there. Your assessment of these kind of divisions that exist among us clergy, which saddens me as a clergy person, and among the black elected officials?
I think there is a changing of the guard, if you will.
Okay.
Things are different. And I've heard you say it, and I've heard other people say it, the black community is not a monolithic community. That's different. So we do have a lot of things that are seemingly unprecedented happening. But there were a lot of black leaders who helped to keep everybody together.
Okay.
Who helped to galvanize the black community. And the list is long, so I won't try to name everybody. But when Amos Brown would do his radio show at the beginning of the year, he would always talk about black leaders in business, black leaders in education, black leaders in government, and so on. But he wouldn't say who the black leaders were in the clergy. And I remember asking him, I said, Amos, why don't you say anything about the church? He said, well, I'll let y'all fight that out. He mentored me from afar. A lot of people don't know that, because I've been in broadcasting for 26 years.
Okay.
And whenever I would go do my show, I would always see him. He was there that often.
Right.
And he would share things with me, and he would always say, Pastor Jackson, that's not who you are, it's who you represent. And I learned a lot from him. He would have me on his show and whatnot. But because there's a lot of changes, it used to be all black ministers were very supportive of the Democratic Party.
Right.
All black ministers were Democrats.
Right.
If you were a Democrat mayor, then you were probably going to be safe from the black community saying anything deleterious about you.
Right.
But that's different now. Black leaders are holding mayors accountable, and regardless of what party that you might be a part of. So among leaders, I think whether it's the clergy or whether it's in politics or elected officials, it's that whole concept of leadership, and that leader who is a leader who is inclusive.
Okay.
I think one of the big problems, Reverend Harrison, is we have too many exclusive leaders.
Right.
Who are not into making sure that we're going to bring other people along with us. So
has that been a change in your mind from, just a few names, the Bill Crawfords, the Glenn Howards, on the political side, even though Glenn was a member of my congregation and would be critical of preachers sometimes, they tended to reach out and want to work with the clergy on big issues in the community. How do we galvanize around these issues to make life better, improve the quality of life for, all the residents of Indianapolis, particularly in communities of color?
And that's one of the biggest differences,
right,
what you just articulated.
Okay.
Glenn Howard, Bill Crawford, Julia Carson,
right,
all those folks, if it hadn't been for the clergy, the black clergy,
right,
then you wouldn't have the black judges, the black elected officials. So a lot of those folks, back then it was mostly the concerned clergy, that group, and they would meet with the black preachers. Mm-hmm. Sometime it was outside of those meetings that those folks would do exactly what you're saying. What do we need to do?
Right.
How can we make it better? How can we collaborate? It seemed to be a divide now between black elected officials, not all cases,
right,
but too often. I have a pretty good relationship with Councilwoman Lakeisha Jackson, District 14, and we've been able to do a lot of great things out on the Far East Side. And she's one of those leaders of black elected officials who reaches out and is interested in and says, hey, let's collaborate. Let's make sure, for example, they recently reached out and said, well, we want to get some of our young people in the Pathway program to work in the Clean for Green program, which we've done. We've done for the last several years.
Right.
She'll do the workforce development. We'll do some mentoring, and then we go out and we clean up the neighborhood, or we do the technology and all that. So it's that kind of intersection that we need across the city. However, if you have black elected officials who don't like you, or hate you, because you either work with Republicans or you are a Republican, or you might be a Democrat who seem like a Republican.
Right.
I mean, you sound
like me.
As far as I know, you're a Democrat, but you work with both.
Yes, I will try to work with both. Yes, but they get you in trouble, because I think a lot of us who were a part of, whether it be Mayor Goldsmith or Mayor Ballard, doing the work that we do, certainly was criticized for that, and in some sense blackballed, and accused of being Republicans. Where when the issues still exist, people were still killing each other. Poverty is still a major issue in the neighborhoods in which we live and pastor in. We still have issues with our school system and broken black families, and those tend to get overlooked based on who you are connected to. And part of my issue as we talk, real talk, is that we have this philosophy that we have to put all of our eggs as black people in one basket, rather than putting our eggs in different baskets, which other races seem to do but us.
Yeah, and that's still fresh.
Yes.
In the last presidential election, President Biden, who wanted to be president, he said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
Yes.
Of course, he kind of tried to walk that back, but out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Right.
So I think we have to get away from thinking that all black people have to be Democrats. All black people were Republicans at one time.
That's true.
And because of some things that happened where black communities were neglected, black folks gravitated over to the Democratic Party and have been part of the Democratic Party ever since. What most people don't know is the Republican Party and the Democratic Party used to be one.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the Federalist Party, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there was the break between Democrats and Republicans over black issues.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
If it hadn't been for slavery,
yep,
there wouldn't be a Republican Party.
That's true. That's true.
And again, I think people need to research that.
Right.
Because people think that the Republican Party is evil.
Right.
Is and on all that.
Right.
There's evil people in all parties.
Right. That's true.
But there would be no Republican Party if it had not been for black issues. So, I'm of the opinion you can support whoever you want to support.
Right.
And I thought you could be whatever you want to be in this country. But when it comes to politics, it changes.
Well, it does. But I think we benefit as a community when we're having real dialogue about the issues. That's
a big issue.
Yeah. You're married like I'm married. Me and my wife don't agree on every issue, but we talk through it, and sometimes we find common ground. Sometimes we don't, but we respect each other's viewpoints. But I don't see that in our country today. Either you see it my way or the way of the majority of the black community, and if not, you are Uncle Tom, you are a coon. We use those names that are derogatory and were used against us.
That's rough stuff.
And it's rough stuff. Yeah. With the cancel culture, and we don't seem to progress because there's no real dialogue, conversation where we're trying to find common ground.
We have to grow as leaders. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that we all have to work on. Mm-hmm. We all have biases, one way or another, and we have to work on that. And for people who want to operate at higher levels of leadership, you have to be intentional about looking down the inside of your heart and making sure that you're out there for the needs of all the people. When you're mayor of a city or you're a district councilor, or you're a senator or whatever, when you get elected, you're not just working for the Democrats if you're a Democrat, or a Republican if you're or Republicans if you're a Republican. You're working for all the people, but maybe you are a member of this particular party. And there are elected officials, black and white, who have that in their minds, that I'm out here for the people. Mm-hmm. It's for everybody.
Right.
You can't be a district councilor or a mayor who says, I'm only going to do for Democrats, or I'm only going to, if you're a Democrat, or only going to do for Republicans. You work for all the people. But I've heard it said that it's better to sin against God, he forgives. When you sin against the parties don't forgive.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. I think people like me and you probably have experienced that once we sinned against the party.
Yeah. And you don't get invited to things. Yes. I think some of the work that you've done, and since this is Real Talk Broadcasting,
right.
In my observation, some of the work that you've done, and some others that I know,
right.
Those same people would have been highly celebrated in the black community. But you don't get the accolades, you don't get the celebration from certain people.
Right.
They're not going to acknowledge your work. They're not going to do that. So you have to build your own table.
That's true.
You may not want, if you're not going to invite me to your table,
that's true.
And we try to eat at your table, we'll build our own. And that's how I see it. We'll build our own table and we'll invite you to it. And I've come to the understanding that there is a point in time where if people decide that they're not going to work with you, they're not going to do anything for you, they're not going to help you, then you have to take that power. You have to become the power they think they control. It's not about, I'm not trying to get leaders to fall in love with me anymore.
Right. Okay.
I'm after the hearts of the people. Because if it's not about the people, it ain't about nothing. A lot of the people I talk to on the street love 10 Point. I went to do some business the other day, and they asked me, "How's 10 Point doing?" You know Charles Harrison?
Yeah.
I know him. Yeah, for the 100th time, I know him. So they appreciate the fact that, in fact, the team that works out on the Far East Side, which thank you for bringing 10 Point out there. I invited you all to come.
Right,
you came.
right.
We had some great success. And the team that was leading that effort out there, they were feeding people out on Brentwood.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Brentwood
Yes.
looked like, a war. I mean, buildings. When I say look like a war zone, I just mean the condition of the buildings.
That's true.
Big holes in building, charred buildings with people still living.
Well, you're telling the truth. I've been out there so many times. Yes.
It doesn't even look like
That's true.
Indianapolis is.
That's right.
It was amazing. And we did a bus tour through there when I was on the cafe board, the Community Alliance for the Far East Side. And we took some people over there. And it's still kind of like that today. And that's a hard nut to crack because of the HOA and all that stuff. But the 10 Point team that was out there, they were feeding 200-300 people in the summer, almost every week.
Right, that's right.
In addition to patrolling and trying to de-escalate problems. And it's unfortunate that people will know about it and see it and don't say, okay, well, the guy who leads that, Reverend Harrison, he must be a pretty good guy.
Mm-hmm.
If these are the kind of results.
Mm-hmm.
And we can never get to the point as leaders. And I think you're disqualified as a 21st century leader, and especially as a godly leader.
Mm-hmm.
If someone is doing work that improves quality of life and quality of place,
right,
and then you still rebuff, repudiate, and reject that leader.
That's true. That's true. Well, what does before we close here, what does the future hold for James Jackson, Pastor James Jackson? How do you see your future?
Wow, that's a great question, Reverend Harrison. I've been pastoring 27 years.
Okay.
I am interested in local, state, or federal government. I may run for something. Okay. I've been praying about that and thinking about it, and I'll say when I run, I want to run for the right thing. I don't just want to be running to be running. So I'm praying about that, because what I have noticed and observed. And when I am an elected official, I'll say it like that, I hope I'm the kind of elected official that will be inclusive.
Okay.
I am so tired of exclusive elected officials, because you're with this party or that party, and people have been told not to work with me.
Wow.
And I know that for a fact.
Wow.
They have been told not to work with me, or told not to fund my program.
Because of your
affiliation with Greg Ballard, because of my affiliation with Reverend Harrison, or I've been told to stay away from Reverend Harrison.
Wow.
I'm a grown man.
Wow.
I've successively pastored a church for 27 years. I've matriculated at IWU, and I'm in a doctrinal program. So I know how to make decisions.
Amen.
And I just think it's terrible that we have small-minded people, not all of them, but too many people who are not for the greatest needs of the people. Mm-hmm. And there's people suffering out here because we're fighting each other.
I don't think people realize what you just said and what's really going on, that there are people who encourage or suggest to other leaders not to work with certain people, not to work with Reverend Harrison, not to be a part of 10 Point. I don't think people realize that and real. Believe it. Okay.
That is, and we didn't come to talk about that, but I think it's part of the public safety piece.
Yeah, and it's part of the conversation, because, people ask the question sometimes, well, why don't y'all come together? Why aren't y'all not working together? I don't think people understand the dynamics that are at play that prevent that from sometimes happening in our community, because of people who are trying to create division and disunity among us that doesn't allow some greater partnerships that used to exist in this city that helped us to, I believe, have a better quality of life citywide.
Yeah, you're right. And Reverend Harrison is so disappointing And I hope that it will change. And I'll say this, back in 2019, there was a press conference down on the city market. And I went, and there was a bipartisan effort to try and deal with some public safety issues. There were some activists who showed up and hijacked that press conference. And afterwards, I got a phone call from someone who said, well, that's not good optics for you. You were the only black guy up there. Of course, Sharon Franklin was up there too. So we were the only 2 black people up there. Then you had Democrat legislators. You had Republican legislators on the council who were up there too. They were all white. And they said, well, that's not good optics for you. Well, it wasn't about me. It wasn't about me. It was about trying to, at that time, in February, I think it was, of 2019, to get people together to work on the problem that we still have today. And if we could have been successful back then, we wouldn't have as many people in the ground. Yes. Because you, Rick Snyder, we're all saying the same thing.
That's right.
That was finally acknowledged by the prosecutor.
Right, that's true.
At the end of 2021. The chief acknowledged it, of the Metropolitan Police Department. He acknowledged it. It was the same thing that you and Snyder were saying back in 2019, and we were trying to fix. And someone said to me the other day, well, you're running with the Republicans.
Wow.
That's what they told me. You running with Snyder.
Wow.
Well, why do you hate him?
Wow. Yes.
Why do you hate Rick Snyder?
Right.
He's a Christian, but he's also president of FOP. He's trying to help. He's trying to bridge things and heal. Well, so go and sit down and talk. Have you talked to him yet? A lot of people that verbally castigate me. Well, no, you haven't talked to him. We are all men. I reached out to him. I had a conversation with him. So, but when you work with other people that folks don't approve of, or you're running with that person, or you're running with Reverend Harrison, so you're canceled.
Yeah. That's the culture that we live in.
But God didn't cancel.
That's right. Matter of fact, that's true. Pastor Jackson, thank you so much for joining me today on Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison. And we're going to talk soon because there are some other issues we didn't get to that I hope we can get back together in a few months and talk about those issues.
Yeah, look forward to it.
I'm Reverend Charles Harrison, and this has been Real Talk. Join me next time as I bring more real talk about the real issues that affect our community here in Indianapolis and across the country. Next week, I will have the former IMPD Police Chief Rick Hite with me next week as we talk about the crime and violence in Indianapolis and in Baltimore, where he now lives. So thank you so much, and I pray that you have a blessed and awesome day.
This is Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison.
Be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast.
And be sure to check out other great podcasts on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Online now at allindianapodcast.com.